The following is brought to you by Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology. TotalSeal.com. Hello and welcome to another edition of Hidden Horsepower presented by Total Seal. I'm Joe Castello, and once again, I am joined by the Director of Technical Sales at Total Seal Piston Rings, Mr. Keith Jones, who has taken 10 seconds off for our podcast. What's up, Keith?
Hey guys, just having a nice busy day here, trying to solve the world's piston ring problems. You know,
are there piston ring problems out there in the world, Keith?
Many times it's perceived as a ring problem, but I'll say this: 99 out of 100 times, it's something being done to the ring, not by the ring. It's just a matter of helping the end user, we'll say, navigate that water and figure out what's actually going on. And we can almost always find out what it is, figure out what it is, and it's really actually a ring issue.
Very exciting stuff, and we are excited to be joined by a guest from the NHRA World of Pro Stock. So we're going back drag racing this week, Keith. But this is kind of a cool one for me because it's a person who is, in many ways, a legend of Pro Stock who is also relevant right now. And there's not too many people who are current legends of Pro Stock and also relevant right now. This driver won the first ever race during the 500 cubic inch era, the 1982 Winter Nationals, and everybody immediately knows I'm talking about Frank Iaconio and Frank Iaconio Racing Engines. Before we bring on Frank, you work with him to develop ring packages. What's it like working with Frank?
Frank's absolutely just he's a gentleman. And he's a class act. He's great working with Frank. We bounce ideas. What do you think about this? What about trying that? And he's just a great guy to work with because it's that send out an idea, get an idea back. Hey, what about this? Maybe we should try that. How about doing it like that? And that's how we elevate this. This is how we make this a better thing. It's not just a one-sided conversation. It's like, oh yeah, hey, we tried something like that and it did this. So what if we tweaked it like that? So working with Frank is a privilege and an honor. It's the best way I can say it.
Great way to say it. I feel the same way out there at the NHRA whenever I speak with him on the microphone. He's building power for several of the teams out there. Let's bring him on, Mr. Frank Iaconio. Frank, welcome to Hidden Horsepower. How are you?
Thank you. Very good. Very good.
Is everything
trying to get ready for Dallas right now?
Yes, exactly. Is everything Keith said about you accurate?
I think it was a little too kind.
All right, a little over the top. Keith tends to be that way. But
yeah, especially the gentleman part.
Got it. No.
Well, the answer there would be, hey, I just don't know you well enough.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Exactly. So you did mention getting ready for Dallas, the NHRA heading to Dallas, and this podcast will get up relatively soon, so I'm sure everybody out there will be into that. A big event, the NHRA season winding down. I appreciate you taking a little time for us here, and just like doing a little research that is not my own personal research. Like I remember walking into the Gator Nationals in 1982 and seeing your car in the staging lanes, and my dad got me real excited about you because, well, you're an Italian from New Jersey, and so is he. And so that's it. When I was a kid, it was all about Frank Iaconio. You're still out there doing it today. I think that's it's rare and shows that you truly love what you're doing.
Yeah, I do. I'm lucky enough to be, I guess, healthy enough to still work in the shop and build motors and it's just a very time-consuming thing and laborious, So, but that's the way I grew up, and that's what I've done since I was basically 16 years old. So that's kind of what I'm used to,
Let's start off there, the beginning, right? Where you decided cars, working on cars, engines. Where did that come from? What was the initial spark? I know your original stocker was a 1957 Chevy, but even before that, as a kid, like where did the initial spark come from?
It started from, I guess you could say, bicycles. Just riding bicycles, three-wheelers, and then finally old enough to get two-wheeler, fixing all the kids, the neighborhood kids' bicycles, and then when I was 11 years old, I built a go-kart out of wood, and I was driving that around in the streets, and so then naturally I couldn't wait to get my license, and I actually started restoring a Model A when I was like in high school, about 14, 15 years old, and spent pretty much every period of high school in auto mechanics restoring my car. Then got my license finally when I was 17, and couldn't wait to get to the track,
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. So then I got drafted, and then I was working at a Pontiac dealer at the time, and that was a Vietnam era, and he got me in the National Guard, so I didn't have to go to Vietnam, and went to basic, and came home after basic training, had a black Bel Air 57 Chevy, also fuel-y, and drove that down to Fort Benning and raced that at Phoenix City, Alabama on the weekends, and that's where I saw my race car, which was a business coupe. Down there was another fella that had it. So we traded bodies because the Bel Air was too heavy for the class, and he had the business coupe. And we just switched powertrains, and I raced that car some more at Phoenix City and wound up driving that home, and that became my first race car.
Amazing.
So.
Well, I was going to, this is a completely irrelevant question of that, but how many model car kits did they do of your car, Frank?
I remember building one. Yeah, they did the '83 Camaro and the Thunderbird.
Okay,
so
I did the Camaro. Just something not a lot of people may or may not know, but to me that's a huge recognition, when you've got, there's a model car of that guy in that car, he's somebody, so just say, I built your car kit back in that day.
Yeah, there's, that was Monogram that made those. It was just the Camaro, the 83 and the Thunderbird.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
You
can still find them around. They're still around.
That is great stuff. And as you evolved, I mentioned the 1982 Winter Nationals, but even prior to that, just something cool that I think you kind of got involved. You got involved in Pro Stock. You stepped away after a couple of on track incidents, but then went in all the way. You got your first race win against Glidden's Fairmont. Are you kidding me? Like, that is only two. He won 7 of 9, and you're one of the guys to beat him.
What year was that?
78.
78. Yeah, that's the first year I won, which was Gainesville. That was my first race. But to be honest with you, I don't recall what I would have. If somebody asked me, I would have said it was probably the Pinto, but I don't.
Maybe.
As far as I know, I don't think the Fairmont ever lost a race.
Well, I got it from Competition Plus, our great friend Bobby Bennett, 7 of 9 that year. So maybe it wasn't the Fairmont.
Yeah.
But it was Glidden, and he went red in the final.
Yeah, it was Glidden, right? That was the main thing. Yeah.
It was Glidden.
Yeah.
What was it like racing against those guys? Like being in the era of Rayer Morrison Shepard, Bob Glidden, Grumpy Jenkins, those guys. A little bit later on, the professor in and around doing the IHRA thing. Like, that is what people consider the golden era of Pro Stock even to this day, and you were right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I was fortunate to race in that time, and be, racing those guys. I mean, it was pretty cool. I got into it not realizing probably what I was even getting into. Jenkins helped me a little bit in the beginning and sold me my first set of cylinder heads, because that was in 72 in the Vega days. So I started in 72 and saw what he was doing, and that's when I stopped racing stock And then, like you said, a couple of on-track incidences in 74, and then I really wasn't racing, and Ray Allen, we were snowmobiling together, and he was racing Supermod at the time. He had a Nova, because he had won the 72 Indy back when it was 32-car field. And anyway, he had sold his Vega and said, why don't we build a car? And that's when we built the Monza, and we started in 76. So then that turned into the first race, like you said before, in 78. So, but that was when Glidden was pretty dominant, you know.
Yeah, and all the weight break stuff, and that was like the beginning of...
Yeah, exactly.
But then the 500 cubic inch stuff came around, the same rules package for the most part that is in play today, and you're still building engines. You won the first race, you won the 1982 U.S. Nationals, and you're still building engines that are relevant today for Kenny Delco, for the Quadras. How do you even ask this question, right, Keith? Like, how much has it changed from then to now? I can imagine all the way, but I would love to hear, Frank, like, how much has it changed?
Well, just to give you an idea, the first race, like you were talking about, the 82 Winter Nationals, I think we made just a little less than 1,000 horsepower when we ran 782, I think it was. And nowadays you're talking almost 1,500. So that's, just to give you a rough idea how much power we've picked up over however many years that was, It's, what it is. It's the parts that are available too, and everything keeps getting refined. And back in those days, it was all hand-built cylinder heads. So you didn't have 4 or 5 sets of heads that were the same. You only had basically one set that was always better because they were done by hand. Nowadays, everything's CNC'd, so you can build 10 engines and they all pretty much within 5 horsepower,
Well, yeah, definitely. I was going to say, Frank, do you find it, and obviously, you've got decades to reflect back upon. You think about it. You're, a Pro Stock championship driver. You won races, and you're still building race-winning engines today. With the rules that are in place today, fuel injection, RPM limits, everything you're dealing with today, compared to back in the old day, which do you find more challenging? Is it harder to find the power now? Is it as hard as it was back then? Like you say, the low-hanging fruit's long gone. So, how do you approach the challenge today? Because as everybody knows, they never come at you asking for less. It's like, hey, Frank, we need to find another 2. Can we find another 3? They're never going to ask you for less power.
Yeah. Right.
What do you what do you think these days?
Well, in the beginning, we found chunks of power, because everything was so primitive. We started out with regular stock cylinder heads, and so in the beginning, the early 80s, you'd pick up pretty big chunks, 20 horsepower here along the way. So that kind of tapered off, and then as things became refined, so fast forward to now, it's a lot harder to find any power right now. I think the biggest thing right now is the intake manifold with the fuel injection, because when they threw that at us, I guess it was in 2016, we don't have all the years of development that we did on the 2 4-barrel manifolds. So now, I don't think we don't really find horsepower that much in short blocks, as far as cams and, pistons and rings and that kind of stuff. It's pretty much tapped out, or if you want to, however you want to say it, so most of the stuff, the gains nowadays are on track with the manifolds, and it's not even so much on the dyno, because the manifold can fool you, on the dyno, unless you got a hub dyno. I think the biggest gains nowadays are in the fuel injection and intake manifold at the track, to answer your question.
Well, no, that's right on. Yeah, you and I were talking about the other day, the things that, there's that data that it's really, really hard to capture even with a dyno and sophisticated dynos. How does it accelerate? How does it recover the gear change? The real, real world testing that, that you've got to go out there and do. And, that's, and obviously you've done well. It's the best way.
Well, you got to have cars out there running to get any feedback. That's the advantage that, say, KB and Elite have. They got so many cars out there running, so you can put in a different manifold on one of the other guys' cars, and so every time we make a session, you got feedback from, say, 5 cars instead of 1 or 2 cars. That makes things progress a lot quicker.
Data is king. From a ring point of view, obviously, we've talked a lot about how rings have changed over the years and the coatings. Frank uses a lot of our total conform ring, which are the slotted rings on the inside edge. When you went to the total conform, Frank, and keep in mind, I don't know the answer to this, folks. Did you see improvements, and what improvements did you see with that ring?
It looks like it might be a little bit easier to seal the motor up. Like I said before, there's not too many gains. I mean, I'm talking probably, on 1500, we're talking 2 or 3 horsepower, So it looks like the blow-by is a little better and a little bit easier to get it to seal up.
And I like that because, of the flexibility of that ring, that we'll call it, making it easier for you because you've got a mountain of tasks to take care of. I'm only looking at one part. You're looking at 1,000. So I would say we did our job there. We made it just a little bit easier. For you.
It just I guess you could say like a little more user friendly.
Excellent. But intake manifolds, camshaft profiles, we talked about, the other day, exhaust, headers. Everything's got to work as a unit, and it's amazing to me, the testing that you guys do and where it's been. Have you, again, besides manifolds and, that kind of stuff, do you see much else? What's your next place that you want to dive into?
Valve train is pretty key on these things. We got some projects going on now, I think, that we're going to concentrate on. Basically, it's valve train.
And, obviously we don't want you to reveal exactly what it is because you're in a competitive situation out there. And for those that don't follow NHRA Pro Stock on a regular basis, it's probably more competitive now than ever before. And frankly, you had mentioned you need cars, right? When you were doing engines for Kenny, Delco, and Val Smeeland occasionally, that's 2. Right? But now you are hooked up with the Quadra family, and as I understand it, you're doing the engines in those Mustangs, and that they've got big plans and have made or are making a pretty significant commitment to the future of Pro Stock, as in that's where they want to be. And is that helping you with your R&D?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Sure. No question. Because it's more cars and plus the money part of it, the monetary part, you're able to get more parts and look at more things and try more things, as opposed to putting it all on Kenny, So everybody benefits from it, you guys know it takes a lot of money to do this. So I could sit here and come up with 100 ideas, but without the money to be able to try them, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, you can only model so many things. You've got to go with, we'll say, that Western mentality of we'll paralysis by analysis. We'll look at it to death, but the proof's in the pudding when you run it, and that's you got to get it in there, stick it in there, and see how it does.
There's more parts that wind up on a shelf that you don't use than the parts that you do use, and unfortunately, all this stuff is very expensive, and so you need the money to do it, and the more customers you have, it just helps.
I have a question about the And by all means, continue if the question is not relevant. But technology. We talk a lot about honing. We're talking about sealing up, and you say that it's pretty much. I don't want to call it maxed out, but to me, that's a good thing. That means, there's been a lot of focus put on that area and the, ring seal and honing. I recall a story about you guys, like when you picked up some power, maybe it was the beginning of the 19 season, perhaps, where Kenny was qualifying in the top 5 and a hot hone, if you will. Is that a story you can share that you guys kind of tried a different technique and it worked?
He brought one of our motors down to Gray's at the time, and they hot honed it, and that's the motor that he was running good with. But to be honest with you, right now we don't do that. I just hone them cold. I don't know if that's. I think most people do hot hone them, but I'm just not in. I don't have the equipment to do that. I'm pretty happy with our blow-by numbers are between 2 and 3. So I haven't yet to see a hot-honed engine be any better than that. Nowadays, the blocks are so good. They basically, when you get them hot, they kind of just get bigger. They don't really distort or get out of round. The cylinder just gets bigger in diameter when it gets hot. And so I don't know. I'm not saying it's a waste of time, but like I said, I'm not in a position. I don't have the equipment to do it, so we're still honing them cold.
I'll jump in just a little bit. It's interesting you brought that up, Frank, because hot honing was to call it in vogue or the trend. Say 10 years ago, everybody hot hone, and it's. There are still guys out there doing it. Most of the guys that I deal with that are doing it are aluminum block guys, sprint car guys, stuff where, because the aluminum really moves so bad. But most of my iron guys have gotten away from it. Not saying anything bad about it, but most of them have gone back to cold honing, like Frank said. The hone heads are better, the blocks are better. Everything is just technology moved forward. The bulk of the guys that I would don't hot hone anymore, and they're getting really good ring seal and good numbers. And that's not to say that there isn't something to be found there, but most of them don't. Most of them just
like I said,
it's expensive and a mess. You got 200-degree hot honing oil flying all over the place. It was kind of intense.
Like you said, the honing heads and the blocks. I don't know. The other. I think it all started too with NASCAR. And naturally those things are out there, whatever they run them things at, 250, 280 degrees. Yep. I could see that. Okay, you need to hot hone it because you're in a totally different, temperature range. Our cars, when we leave the trailer, we're 50 degrees, and we're maybe 90 degrees at the end of the run. So to me, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to make it hotter than 90 degrees when you're honing it if you're not running any hotter than that in the car? So that's kind of
like you say, you're barely bringing it up to ambient temperature.
Yeah, we leave the trailer at 50, sometimes in the 40s, and at the end of the run, it's pretty much always 90. So why hot hone it? I don't know.
Here's one for you.
You were on with the numbers on NASCAR, like 280, and again, going to that, running at that extreme temperature, bringing, that may be the case for those guys, and I do know that those teams do that. So, like you say, kind of the right thing for the right environment.
What is it like to work with Keith at Total Seal, and when you're coming up with ideas or concepts, things that maybe are new or fresh? How is it to work with Keith, and what kind of pushback do you get, or vice versa? Does he ever come to you with an idea?
Well, I mean, to work with anybody, like all the companies we deal with, it's always nice to have somebody that you feel comfortable with talking to or ordering parts, or like Keith said before, bouncing ideas around. So whether it's somebody at Diamond when we order pistons, or somebody at Comp Cams. It's just a pleasure to have somebody that you feel comfortable talking to, and Keith is, we've we've dealt with each other for a lot of years, and it's just a pleasure.
That's great. If you could go back and tell yourself something in 1982 from now about the performance of the car, how to do something to advance the ball back then, like Back to the Future style, what would it be?
Probably the bell in the bell housing, the clutch. I mean, there's a million things, but as far as making power goes, but just to say the motor's the same, probably the clutch would be something that you could probably make a pretty good gain with. We didn't do anything back then, as far as we just ran an L88 disc with a long style pressure plate, and you just put the thing in the car, and that was it. It never came out. So
wow.
We didn't start doing it. We didn't start doing clutch stuff till later 80s, I guess. We started messing around with that counterweight in spring, and actually realizing that it made a difference.
Well, here's a dumb question. And some guys, obviously you've got decades under your belt, and there'll be a couple little things I want to throw out here. One, because I'm a huge Pro Stock fan and have been forever. Do you still have any of your old cars?
Oh no, I don't.
All gone.
Every car got sold. Yeah.
Because some guy, it's funny is the guys, some of them hung on to them. They still got them. Yeah, it's out in the shop, it's out in the garage. I love seeing the resurgence of nostalgia Pro Stock stuff out there. The guys were at the U.S. Nationals. It was great seeing some of those cars. Some were tributes, some were real. It was great seeing. So I just had to throw that out. I didn't know if you still owned any of your old cars.
Well, Terry Adams has my Cutlass. My actual Cutlass that I ran up until like 97, 98. Mm-hmm. Terry Adams races that car in the nostalgia thing.
Oh wow,
very cool.
Cool.
And it is the car. It is the car. Hasn't been repainted or anything. I saw it at Charlotte. He had it at Charlotte, the first Charlotte this year, the 4-wide. And it's really nice shape. So anyway, that's the only car that I know of that's around.
That was my next question. Going on that thread, if you were going to have one of your cars back, which one would you want?
Probably the 83 car, the one they made the model of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a toss-up between the 79. The 79 was a pretty good car, too. That's the one we won Indy with and won the first 500-inch race. But I probably won more races with the 83 car.
You bring up 1983, and people who have followed your career, that was the year that, how could we say it?
Mm-hmm.
But the championship was robbed from you is a good way to say it. If we're not pulling any punches anymore,
right.
That was kind of a bad deal, guys, at the World Finals. But after a very strong season, how do you look back on that now? We've had some weird timing system things happen that have been, I feel like, addressed and corrected, or addressed at very least recently. But when you look back at that, Frank, like, that's got to bug you.
I try not to look back on it. No, it was just a thing where they wouldn't rerun it, and I see Steve Gibbs. Steve Gibbs was the race director at the time, and it was his decision. And every time I see him to this day, he apologizes. That's one of the biggest regrets he has. That what happened. That they were wrong about it.
And for those that don't know, I really don't want to bring it back up with Frank listening, because it's got to be very painful. So go look it up. It's just terrible. But do you think that was deliberate? Or just an anomaly?
Well, I don't know. I would say it was. I mean, it was definitely bogus because the speed didn't match the ET, and then the next round he ran what he normally ran.
Right.
I was qualified number 1. He was probably 9th, I guess, or 16th. I don't know what they did at the time. And so the next round coming around for second round, he ran, like he would normally run. And then the ET when he ran me was bogus. It was, I don't know if it was a rear wheel start, but it happened again that was at the World Finals. And then the next year in the spring at Gainesville, it happened again with him racing Ken Dondero, one of Jenkins's cars. So it was something with the car.
Yeah.
With his car.
Something bizarre. And again,
Yeah, something hanging down or something.
So that the car is moving and you haven't tripped the beams and you're getting like a rolling start and you don't go red.
Like a rear wheel start.
Like a rear wheel start, something.
The red
like
light should have came on and it didn't.
Yeah.
That's basically what happened.
And it was
a red light start, but it didn't show up red.
And this one had championship implications, as is you did not win the championship because of this.
Like I said, I won the race before the World Finals. I won Fremont, which we were at Fremont. So I beat Shepard in the final at Fremont. We came down to Orange County. I qualified number one. So Sunday morning, I was 50 points ahead. I guess nowadays it would be 5. And I qualified number one, and I just needed to have a decent day, and that happened first round. So that was it.
And Shepard goes on and wins the championship by going at couple rounds.
Yep.
I admire your ability to move forward and keep racing and have a great career. I know a lot of people, nowadays we see what everybody thinks in real time thanks to the social media, right? Everybody goes on there and complains and gets angry. I can't imagine what you would have said if that was available, but you handled yourself very well.
Well, I'll just say it this way real quick. He's an Italian from New Jersey. You can just imagine.
Yeah. You know what? I couldn't do too much because you're in their playground. So if you want to keep racing, they're really as opposed to trying to sue them or whatever you want to, trying to make a big deal about it. And so it's either, if you want to keep racing, the best thing was just to move on.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And you're still racing. You're still out there to this day, and it is amazing. So when you look back at the, the Warren Johnsons, the Grumpy Jenkins, the, Bob Gliddens, the, Rare Morrison, who did you have the best relationship with, and who was your most intense rival of those legends?
Best relationship was, I had a pretty good relationship with Glidden. And David Rear too. David and Buddy, we were pretty good with them. We'd go out to eat and stuff. And Lee Shepard. Lee was quiet, Warren I never really bothered with too much. But we were pretty good. Me and Glidden were pretty good friends. He let me use his shop one time. Went up there and in the Monza days, and we had about a year or two that we didn't talk. We had a little problem. I beat him in Seattle, and he thought he won, and my win light came on, and I thought I won, and so we didn't talk for about a year, I guess a year and a half. But then after that, that kind of blew over. We became close again.
See, it all worked out. It all works out in the end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just one of those things,
Yeah, those things happen from time to time. So
yeah. I mean,
do you feel like Kenny's had a quick car at times, and the Quadra boys know how to drive real well. They're good. Do you feel like something is percolating over there with the teams that you're working with? Like, do you feel like the? Yeah,
we just can't get everything can't get all our ducks lined up. I don't have. I mean, the biggest problem nowadays is we can't get parts. So I can't give the Quadras the same power that Kenny has because I can't get the parts. The engines that the Quadras have are the ones that I inherited from when they were dealing with Nick. So I kind of just did what I could do with them, and that's basically what they have. So we have some other parts in the works, blocks and stuff like that, and so, but it's not going to happen till next year. So, we just can't get parts.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like 15 horsepower difference between that stuff and Kenny's stuff, which is a couple hundreds,
Yeah.
So, and then the Quadra cars, I don't know. We seem to have, like, the blue car at the last race. It's just got a miss in it, and we can't find it. The orange car was slow, so we parked it, and that's why Christian was driving Val's car.
Sure.
At the last race, and it ran a little better, ran good speed in the back half compared to the orange car. So they rewired the orange car, was down at Justin Elks. They rewired it, brakes, wheel bearings, anything you could think of to slow it down. They changed. So now we're going to try and run that car Wednesday. So we're going to put the motor back in the orange car and try to run that. And we still have to fix the blue car. The blue car has just got a miss in it, and we can't figure out what's wrong with it. So
the challenge of Pro Stock, is there something you would say is the greatest misconception for people about Pro Stock? Like I heard you talking earlier about just how laborious it is, right? Like building engines, taking them apart, putting them back together. It's just constant nonstop work.
It's hard to explain. I mean, the motors just everything you touch, every little part has to be massaged and machined or cut, or there's nothing that you don't have to work on. They just take a lot of time to build. Luckily, like, we get our cylinder heads and intake manifolds from CFE, and that's all CNC'd. So, but if I had to do cylinder heads and manifolds, and forget it, I couldn't do it.
Wow.
So
interesting stuff.
But it's still a lot of work, even getting that stuff. Not having to work on that stuff, it's still time consuming.
Frank, at the end of each episode, we ask for advice for the next generation. I'm going to let Keith ask his final question or two, and then I'm going to hit you with that. So I just want to put that in the back of your mind. Be ready as we wind down here on this episode of Hidden Horsepower. Keith, what do you got for Frank? Final questions.
Well, the question is, being the consummate racer that you've been all these years, Frank, and the consummate engine builder that you are, is the desire still there to let the clutch out? You guys are at the track testing. Hey, Frank, hop in. Throw her out for 100 feet. You ever get that chance? Yeah. You still want to do that?
Yeah, I think about it sometimes. I don't know how I would feel once I sat in there. I feel physically that I could, but to do it just to go. Like you say, 100 or 200 feet or something, or even a quarter mile, even make a full run. What's the point? If I'm not going to race, it would be just something to get my jollies off. It's not like I'm going to wake up on Sunday morning and be able to cut double O lights.
Yeah, but what's wrong with that?
You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. But
but that's
how it is
right
nowadays. If you're not in the double O range or 020 or better, 015, that kind of, you're not going to win. I don't care how fast you are.
But and I agree with you. But your answer was exactly what I kind of expected, because being the racer, and I understand this completely. If you're not going there to race, what's the point?
Yeah, well, it's just to let the clutch out. But I mean, I guess if the I obviously don't have my license anymore or nothing, so And the other thing is, when I raced, we didn't have all this safety equipment to put on. So, you got headphones and you got the Hans device and full helmet. Like, I'm not used to all that stuff, so I don't know how I would even. I don't know.
You'd be fine. You'd be fine. You'd adapt in 2 seconds.
I bet you'd adapt just fine.
Yeah. You'd be fine, Frank. Like, didn't you tell me, like, last year or 2 years ago, the whole pandemic thing's got my memory all warped, but you were talking about getting in a car and running or competing.
Well, we were supposed to do something at Indy. It was the 50th year Pro Stock thing.
Yes.
And I would have been, basically the only guy that spanned the whole era, because we raced in 72, so it's almost the beginning, and until now, there would have been kind of a novelty kind of thing, but then the pandemic hit, and
yeah,
we were going to wrap the car like. We were going to wrap the car like the Iaconio and Allen paint job on the 79 car, I think. So
that would have been cool. Yeah, well.
Yeah, it would have been cool. Yeah.
Well, I think we need to start, the GoFundMe or whatever it takes to do that kind of thing, because I think that would be absolutely awesome.
I agree. Got to do it. Can't let the pandemic win. We have to do it. All right, Frank. Next generation, there are kids at the track. You see them at the ropes. Some of them are going to want to be involved. Some of them are going to want to be machinists, engine builders, crew members, race car drivers. You know how it goes. What would your advice be to the next generation? So many say that the next generation needs advice from folks like yourself. What would you say?
Well, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is how much desire they have. That's what drives you. It depends on how they look at it. If they really want it bad enough and they're willing to work, unlimited hours like we did when we were young, it's the same old thing, like follow your dream kind of thing. But on the other hand, it's not that easy, because finances get in the way, Like a young person, I mean, you want to have a job and you want to make money, but there's places to work, shops that hire kids that are really want to do it and are capable of picking up on it and learning. Like I said, the most important thing is how much desire you have to do it, whether it be driving or machining or whatever it is, engine building.
That's it. Desire and effort, right? You put in the effort.
And effort, yeah, right. Willing to put the effort in, and how much drive you got to have. You could have the dream, but not the drive.
Exactly, and that there's a lot of that attracted by drag racing. Frank, Excellent job. Really appreciate it. I think this was illuminating, and the idea that you're still out there and you're on the quest for power, always on the quest for power, and you got several cars and some young drivers that are running your stuff that at any moment they can go 00 and go out there and win a race. I appreciate it. Keith, say final words.
Again, Frank, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Like you said, you've got a job that you're putting in a mountain of time, working on these engines, always trying to push it to the next level. Like you said, that comes at the expense of your time, and I appreciate you taking the time out to do this. Again, really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you this weekend in Dallas.
Yep. Okay, we'll see you down there.
And there he goes, Frank Iaconio. Keith, that was just awesome. There was a roller coaster of emotions during this interview.
Oh, absolutely. Frank brought up some stuff in the past that I don't think he necessarily wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
But he faced it and chin up, and gave us some good details on on his whole span, this huge career that he's had.
Yeah, it has been great, and again, out there still building power. And I know that Fernando Quadra and those guys, and of course Kenny Delco, they feel good about where they're going and the way the program is evolving. But now, I just didn't want to bring up the 1983 Pro Stock World Championship and to tell the story while Frank, is got to suffer through it. But the whole deal is this, okay? Let me position it in a different way, if you don't mind, Keith. Jerry Gwynn, Daryl Gwynn's dad, Jerry Gwynn. Used to race at Miami Hollywood Speedway in his Double B funny car, the Baby Huey. And occasionally they would book him in to match race a jet car, right? A jet car. And performance-wise, they were a little down to the jet car. And so what they would do is they would go get a long, like a brush, like a broom, like a push broom kind of thing. Like imagine like a long push broom for doing like a broom finish in concrete. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And they would put it behind the front wheel of the car, and they would be able to leave on like the top yellow, and the car would be moving before the stage beam would break because of this brush thing that would keep the beam broken, like the tire, right? Would be like the tire was like 6 feet long in the staging beams, if you could imagine. And that was Jerry's way of tricking the timing system so that he could make a really good run against the jet car. And it was totally fine because it was an exhibition deal. Well, imagine using that same theory, occasionally in competition, where your car launches and the red light doesn't come on because something is hanging down from your car, and it is used occasionally as a cheat. Or let's say we're not cheating. Let's say it's just an incident, like something happens to be hanging low on the car and catches the stage beam. It's 1983. It's probably not, we're using photocells back then probably, as opposed to infrared beams. I don't know exactly off the top of my head when CompuLink came in, but you get the gist, right? Imagine losing a championship on something bizarre like that. Your opponent runs his best ET by 0.2 of a second, and then the next run goes right back to the average. That would be pretty tough to take.
Yeah, there's something going on at the fish market that day.
Yeah, that's a way to say it. That's one way to say it. And, without accusing anybody, because, you can't now. It's too much time, too much water over the bridge. But everyone, you can go read and look up the story. Frank handled it real well as you could. I know people would walk away, right, after something like that. Instead, he went on and won many more races and has had a great career. And I think we brought a lot out. So appreciate that. Want to remind everybody, Hidden Horsepower available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. We encourage you to subscribe. Of course, write a review, rate and review if you enjoy the shows. We got more coming, especially into the off season. Planning on PRI, doing some stuff live there. It is great. Plus the Trackside Tech Talks. The one in Dallas, we need not even mention it, but there will be one in Vegas that will be coming up as well. Keith, are you the guy in Dallas and Vegas?
I am. I will be there with Ed Keebler from Rottler, and maybe Lake will be at the Vegas one. I'm not sure if he's going to attend yet or not, but myself and Ed Keebler will certainly be there.
How great have these Trackside Tech Talks been received?
Oh, extremely well. Better, the first one that we did, and obviously you were there, we really did not know what to expect. Are we going to have, crickets chirping? Are we going to have a full house? Really, like I say, really went into the thing, had no idea. And it was a packed house. We've done a couple so far. It's been a packed house, really gone well. Great response with the audience, excellent questions, and we look forward to doing it, continuing on. It's one of those things I knew when we did this. We talked about doing this a few years ago. Then, of course, the pandemic kicked in, and really thought we had something going on. And I've had interest. So people call me from other manufacturers going, hey, how's that working? And I'm like, yeah, it's working really well. So we're looking forward to doing many more.
That's great. Now, if somebody out there in the audience is interested, has questions about their engine, their project, their way to evolve their technology, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just check out the website, totalseal.com. My email address is on there. All the other guys are on there. A lot of excellent tech tips, videos. Check out our YouTube page. A lot of great information there. And if you don't see an answer for what you're looking for, hey, pick up that phone, give us a call, send us an email, however you want to reach out. We embrace that. We want to hear from you, and we want to answer your questions. So check us out, TotalSeal.com.
Keith, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it again.
He's Keith Jones, the Director of Technical Sales at Total Seal Piston Rings. I'm Joe Castello. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at WFO Joe, or listen to my podcast, WFO Radio, which should be right next to Hidden Horsepower when you go find it. Appreciate everybody out there, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of Hidden Horsepower, presented by Total Seal.